Hello and welcome to adQ&A Live episode 26. I'm Nick Sinitra, and today we are talking about how your business is like a sailboat. So stick around, we're going to explain. So first things first, let's draw out the situation. You have some water, of course, seeing as it's a boat, and you've got the hull. So I'm not the world's best artist, but here you go. Here's the hull, right? The hull represents the foundational elements of your business, right? So these are things like, do you have a unique selling proposition? Are you competitively priced in the marketplace? Do you have a site which is fast and mobile optimized? Are people able to get fast free shipping, right? Can people pay using the different methods that they'd like to use in order to get your product, right? So this is the foundation. You know, the sailboat obviously needs sails and so forth in order to move, but the hull, being airtight and sleek and all of that and basically sound is what's going to allow your business to stay afloat, both realistically, both literally and metaphorically in this example. So the second thing is, of course, a sailboat needs a sail. And then let's get a little smaller sail up here as well. So there's your sail, right? Before I explain the sail, the sail, obviously, I think we all understand. The purpose of the sail is to basically convert wind into motion, right? So let's also draw some wind here. And let's explain what these different things are. Essentially, the wind represents your sort of potential, right? Your potential to sell. And the sail is basically the means by which you're going to convert this potential into forward motion. Now, what you can't see off here in the distance is that there is a lush, beautiful, picturesque tropical island that you want to sail to. And that island represents your business objective, whatever that may be, whether it's a certain sales volume, revenue target, a certain amount of growth, a number of leads that you wish to acquire. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter for the purpose of this example. That's just where you want to go, right? And you've got a couple of different methods to get there. You can get there by sail, which again, we'll explain that in a second, or below the waterline here, you've got a motor. So we'll explain more about the motor and what that's for in a sec. All right, so again, the wind represents potential. So what do I mean by potential? There's really sort of three key elements that comprise that. So one is addressable market. If you sell something that only homeowners could buy, right, let's say, or would buy, then you have a certain addressable market, and your addressable market is homeowners, right? If by comparison you're selling, let's say, shoelaces, well, pretty much anyone who wears shoes, and is not a full-time sandal wearer, let's say, would be part of your addressable market. So secondly, another part of this is sort of purchase intent, right? So of the people that are within your addressable market, how many of them, would buy your product, right? Or maybe are in market for whatever it is you're selling. Third, there's this idea of brand awareness, right? So somebody is within your addressable market, they are in market for whatever type of thing it is that you're selling, and they're aware of you, right? Your specific product or offering, right? That is a viable option for them to purchase. So that's the different pieces. So again, it's addressable market, right? It is purchase intent, right? Buyer intent, and it is brand awareness. Each one of those things basically represents the wind. So, for a given amount of wind, there's different sort of analogies here. For a given amount of wind, I guess the more wind, the more forward motion you can have for a given sail size. Now, let's talk about what the sail represents, right? So again, if this represents your potential, right, the sail essentially represents the mechanism by which you convert that potential, the potential revenue, into actual revenue, right? So this I really think of as being mostly the organic efforts. So this is going to be things like SEO. It's going to be things like maintaining a social media presence. It's going to be content marketing, any kind of PR, influencer, if I didn't already say that one. It's all basically all the different things that get your name out there, right? So that when people are in your addressable market and they're in market for what you're looking for, they are also now kind of aware of your offering, right? And you're basically then leveraging that wind, you're scooping it up and converting that into momentum, right? So there's the different pieces. Again, whole, really foundational elements of your business that you could think of as being sort of the amalgamation of all your sort of post-click user experience, if you want to think about it that way. How your product is positioned, how it's priced, how your site functions, like can people actually go all the way through the purchase funnel without running into a bunch of snags, right? And then again, we talked about the potential, and then we talked about the sort of organic efforts that will allow you to convert that potential into forward motion. So finally, you have the engine, right? And being an agency, this is a part that we tend to focus on quite a bit, and this is really the paid media. So you think about kind of the problem here, really, because it's a sailboat after all, it is entirely possible, it's feasible to get to the island without using the motor at all. In practice though, if you are a small brand, right, if you're not a known quantity, there's really not much wind here because maybe you've got a large addressable market, but people, they might be one or both of not aware of what it is you're selling, right, what you're offering, or not in market for what you're selling, if it's something really new and novel, but they are likely not aware of you yet, right? So you've got efforts that you need to do here to sort of make them aware, right? And some of these things are interrelated, right? Like the paid media, obviously to a certain extent, if you are, running any, paid media, it's going to increase brand awareness. And so there is this sort of a weird connection here that maybe doesn't exactly exist in real life, but bear with me. Cool. So really, the exercise then for most, for most businesses is to get from their current position to that island as efficiently as possible, right? To the greatest extent possible, they would love to basically convert this wind into forward momentum and basically be as sort of fuel efficient as possible. So if I draw kind of one final piece here, it's that you have do the best I can here. You've got your little fuel canister here, right? But the thing is, that fuel is money, right? Time and resources are required to basically power this motor, the paid media campaigns, and move the boat. So really some of the key takeaways here is that there's no sort of one single element that is, it's not just one thing that basically influences whether or not you're going to get to that island, right? Clearly, all of these things need to be working in concert to some extent in order to get you there. Now, probably goes without saying, but I mean, first and foremost in importance is the hull, right? If your hull is covered in barnacles, it's going to be slow. If you got all kinds of holes in there, right? If you've got a slow website, it's not mobile optimized. People can only pay with Samsung Pay. They can't pay with a credit card. They can't pay with PayPal, whatever it is. That's going to be a problem, right? That's essentially like you've got all these kind of cracks, and holes in your hull here that are going to let in water and really slow you down, right? And depending on how many of these holes you have, I mean, you might be moving pretty slow, if not sinking, right? So obviously, this is of paramount importance for, especially in e-commerce businesses, to make sure that all of those foundational elements are really tight, right? Because, the best case scenario, really, if you're missing all of those things, is that you're going to be going really slow. The worst case scenario is that you're sinking, right? And nobody wants that. And then as far as the addressable market piece here and buyer intent and brand awareness and everything, again, there is a little bit of connection between your paid media campaigns to some extent and driving brand awareness and buyer intent and so forth. But a lot of this, depending on what it is you're selling, might be out there already, right? Clearly, the addressable market to a large extent is going to be dictated by what it is you're actually selling. Like we said before, if you're a home services company, you have a certain addressable market. Only people that probably own a home are going to invest in a service like that that's going to fix a problem with their house or maybe increase their property value and things like that. If you are selling a product that is targeted to parents of small children, let's say, then again that's basically what you've got to work with. There are some cases, right? There's some exceptions where you might have a product which is targeted towards women, but then of course there may be a gifting angle where men are buying and so forth. But we won't get super far down the rabbit hole there. So a lot of the sort of addressable market is going to be dictated by whatever it is you're selling. So then the question is, okay, well, with the addressable market as a given, how can I basically capture sort of the biggest chunk of that addressable market? Well, then that's really where those other pieces come in, is increasing brand awareness, increasing buyer intent, and there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, right? And then secondly, there's sort of the sale here, right? So again, we talked about the ways that you can harness that potential energy, right, that wind, in order to move your business forward without I wouldn't say entirely without the expenditure of money, because a lot of these things actually do take money. So things like SEO, things like influencer relationships, things like content marketing and PR and all kinds of things like that. obviously have a cost associated with them. But I mean, I guess if you want to think about it this way, some of those things you can basically just do in-house, right? A lot of them is if you have, even an intern that can, maintain your social media presence, post on Instagram, IG, and all this kind of stuff, or Snap and IG, Twitter, and so forth, right? Then that's going to help you out, right? And there may be a relatively low cost associated with that compared to, let's say, hiring somebody full-time to manage your paid media, hiring an agency to managing your paid media, and of course, in that scenario, you are also paying the media spend on top of whatever fees, right? So this, a lot of this you can handle with relatively low cost. So, if you want to kind of think about in terms of priority, you really want to be tight on the whole, of course. And then in terms of capturing the wind, I mean, that's going to be a big priority. And we look at that as sort of low-hanging fruit in the sense that a lot of this can be accomplished with minimal expenditure of resources, right? Remember, the initial problem was, how do we get from point A to point B as quickly as possible and with the least expenditure of fuel as possible, right? So cool. So that kind of explains the setup there, and the interesting challenge being an agency, right? We're not sort of, running our own business. I mean, we are obviously, but when you think about the challenge from the perspective of somebody who's working with an agency, right? They're essentially making this. They're not going to the island for the first time, right? If they've got an established brand, they're making this trip already every single month, and they know how much fuel it takes to get from point A to point B. And so they're looking at this problem from a slightly different perspective, right? That has some known constraints on it, right? So if I know that by the end of the month I can get to that island every single month, and it usually takes me only, let's say, 10 gallons of fuel, then I might be asking myself, well, how can I become more fuel efficient? How can I rely more on the sail, or how can I improve the efficiency of this motor so that I can get there by the end of the month using only 8 gallons of fuel, right? And then effectively improve my return on ad spend. Or another way to think about it might be, I've got 10 gallons of fuel in here, and instead of getting to this one island that's right there, maybe I want to get to a further island on the same amount of fuel, right? So either way, it becomes sort of an improvement to the ROAS, either by reducing the cost or by increasing the revenue, right? So there you go. All right, I'm not going to spend a ton of time more talking about this, but I think as sort of a thought exercise, an analogy, it's a good way to kind of make the challenges clear and sort of emphasize again that each one of these pieces is important to the big picture, right? That whoever's at the helm here, whether that be a single person or a team of people, really need to manage all these different elements skillfully in order to get you there, not just efficiently, but in one piece. Cool. Well, thanks for watching. We'll make this a quick one today. I'm Nick Sinitra. Thanks for watching us here at adQ&A Live, and tune in next time. As usual, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you have any questions for us, hit us up in the comments. If you have any topics that you'd like us to cover, whether it has to do with just business in general, paid media, anything like that, please let us know. We'd love to cover that. Okay, thanks for watching.